Instruction, golf news, equipment, travel, interviews, course profiles, and more. Your weekly fix of all things golf is about to begin. It's the Flagstick Podcast with your hosts, Jeff Potter and Scott McLeod.
All right, well, welcome everybody to another great episode of the Flagstick Podcast with Jeff Potter, me, and Scott McLeod, him. And we are sponsored this week again by our great friends at Golf PEI. Golf Prince Edward Island is a premier Canadian golf destination boasting the most number of golf courses per capita in our wonderful country. With over 400 fairways, closer than you can imagine, top-tier accommodations, and exquisite culinary experiences, it is the easiest golf vacation you will ever book. So why not go ahead and book one? golfpei.ca. Hit us up on the social media, Instagram, X, TikTok, and Facebook. Make sure you're subscribing to this podcast on Spotify, Audible, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts, and of course our YouTube channel. Love it or hate it, it's great. Click the notification bell. Make sure that you never miss a single episode of this podcast or anything else that we happen to put up there, which will be some new stuff this spring. But yeah, get on that. Well.
Yes.
Well, if you ever started a business and you thought, I wonder how long I'll be doing this for.
Yeah, most businesses, not long, sadly.
And 30 years later,
Mm-hmm.
You looking back going, damn, we've been at this for 30 freaking years.
Yeah.
You know, most people would just say, yeah, whatever. Or maybe your goal when you started it was that you were going to be doing it for the rest of your life. But yeah, 30 years this year. Flagstick magazine, the original, the OG Flagstick magazine, started in May of 1996. There it is. If you're watching on YouTube, there it is, the original magazine, hot design, two-color overlay, two-color overlays. Yeah, beautiful. But that's when it all started, May of 1996. So, the reason why we're bringing that up, I suppose, the reason why we're bringing that up is because we are only a couple weeks away, a week away. So
a week and a bit, week and a half.
A bit away, week and a half. Away from the latest edition of the Ottawa-Gatineau Golf Expo. Yeah. At the EY Center coming up. And it kind of sparked the fact that, well, of course, we knew that this was our 30th season of publishing Flagstick, or doing Flagstick. But the whole thing started really to the public at the Ottawa
Golf show. And that was the first year for the show as well, right? Was it?
No,
it wasn't. Okay.
You know, it was it started a couple years before that, but
okay.
It was our first year of anything.
Back it was at the Aberdeen Pavilion,
yes, right? Yeah, where it's much different looking now. That whole area than it was
about to look different, I guess. There's supposed to be a big renovation going on there, so yeah.
So that sort of got Scotty Mac thinking, hey, maybe we should be focusing this show on the 30 years that have been. So I did not argue it. It's a good time to do it, and I don't mind being put on the hot seat for some time. So that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about Flagstick and the 30 years, its origins. For those that weren't aware, we're going to show sort of how it started, how it's evolved into what has become one of the longest-standing golf media companies in Canada. Yeah, and that is the truth. So let's get to this, I guess. Let's get it started. Front Nine presented by Metcalfe Golf Club. A natural setting, a pleasant challenge. Now is the time to think about the season ahead. Game packages for everyone, 10, 20, and 30 round passes are always available online. And of course, get on the wait list for memberships. I know the membership categories are pretty much sold out right now, but you can contact them, get on the wait list for those, and get your league registrations in ASAP, or you won't have a spot in the league either. So metcalfegolf.com, and stay in touch with Golf Savings.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I guess we just get a caught up on a couple of just quick points. Play Junior Golf Tour has released their 2026 schedule. If you haven't seen it, it's out there now. 16 events in the race to the Flagstick.com Cup, and all the details of that will be on or are on Flagstick.com. I have recently had a quick text message back and forth with Chris Veldkamp about their plans for the season. We're going to sit down, have a chat, go over everything with respect to our involvement again this year with the Flagstick.com Cup, which we will be involved in. That's a given. It's junior golf. That's a no-brainer for us. So there's that. And as of this morning, the Flagstick Open is full.
Yeah.
We are at 120. 120 is our limit. However, I impress upon you once again to sign up. At this point now, everybody goes on the wait list.
Mm-hmm.
You will not be charged for your entry fee until such time that you are put into the field. As simple as that. You register, you do all the things, you put in your credit card information the way you would register. You won't get charged for anything unless you get in the tournament. So get on the wait list, because we just, totally honest with transparency here, we go top to bottom.
Yeah.
So there's no, you're a lower index than this guy. If a 40 handicap registers for the tournament tomorrow and he's the first on the wait list, he's getting in if a 2 drops out. So that's how our wait list works. First come, first serve. So get your name on the wait list now. And usually there are 10 to 15 spots that open up closer and closer to the tournament, sometimes more. So
and get ready to sign up for the shootout. That's coming
just
soon
talked
too.
to Jason Boyce yesterday.
All right, there we go.
He told me they've started clearing greens off there to kind of get superintendents, different breed. They do their thing.
Yeah.
They know their stuff. I'm like, clearing snow off. I mean, we can get snow for another month here. But you got to do this and you got to do this and this. So they're prepping. And yes, the Flagstick shootout registration is going to open probably within the next few weeks. So you're going to want to get in that too. And that's a 72 player field.
That one's tight. So you definitely want to get in there as quickly as possible. Definitely had a lot of inquiries about that. And
wide open for everybody. Just so you know, wide open.
Right.
A, B, C, D division.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Wide open for everybody, but smaller field. So
correct.
Limited spots.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right. Here we go. Yes, as we said, this year Flagstick is celebrating 30 years of being part of this golf media landscape. 1996, it all began. 2026, somehow we're still here.
Yeah, it's wild to think, and it's kind of funny because I was sort of laughing as I was doing this. It's like, okay, it's podcast 161, and it's like about time to maybe touch on the origin story, because like maybe some people are like, oh, okay, where these guys come from or whatever.
Well, some people might only know Flagstick as Flagstick.com.
Correct. Totally. 100%.
Social media side, the podcast, especially the younger generations that post 2020, might never have seen.
Well, there's so many people that are new to the game in the last little while, and I have those conversations almost daily where you just run into people or whatever, and those certainly in different camps. There's the ones that we're familiar with, the print stuff all the way through, and then obviously once the pandemic hit, and we'll get to that as well, is they're familiar with the newsletter, they're familiar with the website, they're familiar with social media. Oh, I follow you on Instagram. I remember a couple weeks ago there was somebody on Instagram. It's like, oh, you have a website, like, because that's all they do is they consume Instagram, right?
Yeah,
so and you can't,
like me and my TikToks.
Yeah, and you can't fault them. That's just where they do. But that's the reason why we are in a lot of different places. So I just thought it would be interesting to go back and look at the roots, because I think in a lot of cases, I don't think people look at that stuff enough. And just to be transparent here, this is me kind of throwing this together. This is not Jeff putting this together to say, oh, I did this or whatever. Self-glossing. He had nothing to do with this, as far as me all of a sudden going, hey, let's do this for this episode. I wanted the story to be told again. We've shared lots of it over the years in bits and pieces, but haven't done it in a full podcast format. And I would just like this audience to know kind of where we're coming from, because there's a lot of podcasts out there these days. There's a lot of people that, and again, help yourself as far as going out there, starting a podcast. Certainly appreciate hearing lots of different voices and so forth. But, there's a depth here that's maybe a little bit different that people maybe don't realize. That we're not just two guys sitting in a basement deciding to let's throw together a podcast. As you said, lots of different lots of different facets over the years, going back to regular print journalism. So that's kind of where we want to get it started here. So I'll take the reins here if you don't mind.
Scott will be the interviewer,
and I go back to what I've been fortunate to do many times, is do a lot of interviews and stuff like that. Because I mean, obviously, I have perspectives of being around, kind of right from the very start, but it's different than hearing it from the person that created it and crafted it, and is the person behind it, every single minute of the day. So I just want people to hear that. So with that, Jeffrey,
on the hot seat,
give me your full government name. No, I'm kidding.
You want my social insurance number too?
Exactly. Let's put that out there. So let's go all the way back. And again, I know how this kind of played out, but I think it would be neat to share. A lot of people would want to wonder, it's like, okay, where do you get the idea to do a golf publication? Because some people will obviously they'll have looked at national magazines and stuff, and especially when you're going back to this time of 1996, this is a time when it was pre a lot of digital landscape. It is the print landscape, but there's big players in the field and limited players kind of in Canada. But where did sort of the idea, the concept come from, and kind of set the scene for us as far as that time?
Wow. Okay.
Big question.
So, yeah, it is a big question.
I'll just sit back and have my coffee.
Yeah, you enjoy your coffee. If I'm looking at the idea behind it came, I have to look at when I started playing golf, and I started playing golf late. So I was like 16, 17 years old when I started playing. So late by today's standards, for sure. There was a publication that existed called Ontario Golf News, and that was the main magazine, other than Score Golf, which was the national magazine at the time. Ontario Golf News covered across the entire province, and its main concept was to cover the tournaments and events and things like that across the country, particularly those related to, at the time, the Ontario Golf Association, which is now Golf Ontario. But back then, they covered all those events. They covered those field days. They covered those championships. They covered the mom and pop tournaments, the club championships, and things like that. It was newsprint inside. It was awesome. I loved it. I thought it was great.
So I mean, at that point, and I don't mean to interrupt, but I mean, I think I just want to add some extra context here or whatever. So why was it that sort of thing appealed to you or caught your interest? Because you got to remember, a lot of people normally will look at PGA Tour, LPGA Tour, things going on in the world. Why was it that the sort of the regional, provincial type?
Because it wasn't those things. That was the point, right? They everybody focused. Like, you could nowadays, it's like, okay, I want a story about Tiger Woods. I want a story about this. I want a PGA Tour this, LPGA Tour that. Everybody, you could get that information anywhere. The regular newspaper,
even
magazine.
Then, right?
Yeah. It was mainstream information, but golf was happening everywhere, and nobody was talking about the small tournament here or the club champion here or something. What happened? Somebody cut a tree down on golf course, XYZ over here. Nobody was talking about those things that probably mattered more or were of more interest to the local and regional golf community than more stories about, back then, Fred Couples or Jack Nicklaus or whatever. I mean, it was just those stories were done to death, and nobody was talking about the other stuff. So Ontario Golf News caught my eye because it's like, wow, I didn't know that about that guy, or that when's that tournament? And, there was a lot of local and regional information that you just didn't hear about because the newspapers weren't covering it.
Right.
Like the local newspapers were covering it, so nobody's paying attention to it. So it caught my interest. Now, is that why Flagstick started? Not necessarily, but that was the concept
Yeah, that's the
behind it.
concept. Yeah, for
Flagstick
sure.
started when I left Kingston. I graduated from St. Lawrence College in Kingston,
Yep.
and I was looking for work. I was applying for jobs everywhere. I couldn't find this, couldn't find that. I ended up leaving Kingston and moving to Ottawa with
Hmm.
my now wife, Patricia, who was working in Ottawa, who just graduated from Queens and was working in Ottawa. So I moved to Ottawa to try to find work in advertising.
Right.
And while I was up there, I came across some. I realized that there was nothing. The Ontario Golf thing, Ontario Golf News, didn't exist
Yeah,
in
because at
Ottawa
that,
area, Ottawa
because
Valley
of
area.
the,
It
yeah,
was
because of
part of
that.
Golf Quebec at the time.
Correct. So
It still is to a point,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it was Golf Quebec. So there was
Yep.
no past a certain point
It
in
didn't
Eastern
have that reach.
Ontario.
Yeah.
There was no reach beyond that. So there
Right.
was nothing there that I knew of. Now, came to find out during the process of going through creating Flagstick or
Hmm.
researching whether it was even a good idea to do it, that there
Yep.
was a newspaper that had existed prior to me moving to
Right.
Ottawa, called Valley Golf News, that was around, that
Hmm.
was very similar. But I
And
looked for work.
back up a little bit too.
Yep.
I can remember, so we worked together. You were
Yes.
a rep for a newspaper and used to come into a golf store, and that's how we met and
Hmm.
connected. And you were obviously managing things like our advertising, marketing, and stuff like that. But I still remember you having a mock up for a publication,
That was
right?
when I was work. Yeah.
That right.
So while I was at the Gananoque Reporter, which was the
Yep.
newspaper that I worked at when I graduated from college, I had an idea
Hmm.
for a golf magazine that was just for Kingston.
Yeah.
So,
At that
so I,
time, very few golf courses in
well, there
Kingston. Still,
wasn't, there
yeah,
maybe less
yeah,
than a dozen that
yeah.
maybe. So I had this idea, and I mocked it all up on
Hmm.
and printed out the pages and stapled the and I still have. I should have pulled that one out. I still have the original mock-up
Yeah,
in safekeeping of the
sure.
original mock-up of Flagstick. Was really bad, but I still have the original mock-up. So the idea, that was it, and it was like, okay, this isn't going to work in Kingston, so I
Hmm.
shelved it.
Yeah,
Like that was it. I was like, okay, there's not enough marketing support to make this work
sure.
in Kingston, so I shelved it. And it wasn't until I had moved to Ottawa and spent
Right.
time looking for work
Yeah.
um, that I couldn't find work doing what I wanted to do. There weren't enough
Mm.
ad agencies in Ottawa. There wasn't enough marketing jobs. It was very different back then. Um, and I
So do you
happened
think, that saying that, then was it a case of like, okay, well, if that's not happening anyways, I guess when I ask a question about, you know, was it risky or did you feel like, oh, I've got to do that? Well, at that point, it was like that was your option anyways.
Well, it
In
was. I
some
mean,
cases.
it was kind of getting desperate. I was starting to look for work at that point. Started looking for just jobs in retail because that
Sure.
was my, good chunk of my background
Yeah.
was retail. So I knew
Hmm.
it. So I just started looking for work because I'm up in Ottawa.
Sure.
I gotta work,
Yeah.
and I happened to going through a box of my stuff from when I moved up, and I came across the mock-up, and then it was like, wait a minute, I'm in Ottawa now. There's a lot of golf courses in Ottawa. There's a lot more
Hmm.
golfers in Ottawa. Still no Ontario Golf
At least
News
you
here.
thought there was. You
Yeah,
you probably didn't even fully know at that point. I mean, you knew it
no,
was a bigger
I
population.
knew nothing about the
Right.
Ottawa golf market really at the
Sure.
time. I just
Well, you
thought,
knew it was
I
bigger,
thought it was a
so
bigger area. This has got to work here.
yeah, yeah,
So I
yeah.
started to look into it. That's when I found Valley Golf News.
Right.
That's when I had a meeting with Bernard Turner Davis from the Ottawa Valley Golf Association at the time, who unfortunately for initially was very discouraging.
Yeah.
He was really good friends with the original owners of the previous newspaper and didn't like the idea that I was going to come in and try to make something that they couldn't make work,
Mm.
and tried to shoo me away from it pretty quick. It was a very discouraging meeting. However, it was right after that meeting that the whole thing flipped upside down.
Yeah.
And should I get into that part?
Yeah, please do. I mean,
Nice.
you had a good friend of ours sort of
Yes.
reached out and said, "Hey, psst, psst, hey,
Yeah. So it
let's
was after
meet."
that meeting, very discouraged, was like ready to just like, okay, obviously if I can't get this guy on board, how am I going to make this work? And so a
Right.
good friend, Joe McLean, who we all know very well now, and who's a very good friend, and has been for a very long time, stepped in and said, "Hey, don't listen to him. It's a good idea. Let's go have a talk." The kind of put the arm around you, kind of like,
Yeah.
"Come
Yeah.
with me, kid.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you what's what."
Yeah.
And it was after that chat with Joe, that I said, "You know what? I'm going to do this."
Yeah.
And then it just kind of like you started to introduce.
So was
He
that the
introduced me
fall
to
or
some
the
people, and
springtime in '96? Like, because it was prior to the golf show,
that was
obviously.
prior to
So
the golf. So that would have been, God, to be honest with you, the exact date of that meeting, Joe probably knows. Um, Joe, if you're
our
listening,
memory is getting blurry.
um,
Yeah.
if the show were live, I'd have Joe call in right now and
Sure.
tell me, but we're not live.
Should I
I
text him?
think that was like early winter. Like
Okay.
I'm thinking that would have been, might have been, because I have kind of have a feeling there was snow on the ground, but it might
Okay.
have been in '95,
Yeah.
like late '95.
So I mean, you're going from there. You obviously got a concept. You're
Hmm.
starting to think about what this is going to look like or whatever. Booking that space at the golf show
Oh
uh,
wow.
without having any product, basically going to go, "Hey, we're going to do this." I mean, how did you feel at the time? Was it where you're like, okay, is this feel risky? Were you just full of confidence and didn't
Oh
didn't
no, no
know how to
confidence.
how to strange it was to say, hey, I'm going to go to a golf show and exhibit, and I don't really
Yeah.
have a product because the product's not really going to come out for a couple of months.
So the interesting thing about the Golf Expo is, in the process leading up to the Golf Expo, of going out and meeting people in the industry, and meeting, Joe had made a point of telling me who the primary ones I needed to get on board were. Like, you
Right.
need to talk to this person, you need to talk to this. These guys are the players.
Yeah.
So he kind of steered me in the right direction there. And one of the first people that I talked to was Gib Patterson.
Mm. Yeah.
And anybody that knows Gib is an awesome,
Yeah.
awesome man. Very smart, been in the business for a long time, super intelligent, but very intimidating when you're a young. And you got to remember, this was 1996. I was 25 years old.
Yeah.
That. So this was a different. Like, I was nervous. Gib was this guy owned golf courses. He owned driving ranges. He was like well known.
Yeah.
You know.
He's a shrewd man who picks his words wisely
Yes.
and can present them to you, like you say, in an intimidating fashion that makes you kind of look back at yourself and go, "Am I
Yeah.
an idiot?" So,
Yeah.
which is good though.
So when
Because
we met, he said, you know, we talked about advertising, and he says,
yeah,
and the first thing he says to me, he says, "Well, I buy advertising," and I'm like, "Okay, are you going to buy some?" Like, it's like, and so this was when the concept in the golf industry, the concept of contra,
right,
was introduced to me pretty heavily. He was running the golf expo at the golf show at the time,
right.
and he's like, "You should be at the golf show." And I'm, "Well, I don't have a magazine to, like, I don't have anything to show." He says, "You have yourself." And I'm like, "Yeah." He says, "You have a name?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he says, "You have an idea?" I'm like, "Yeah." He says, "Well, tell people your idea." So I didn't have a lot of money, if any.
Sure.
So we kind of did a trade off for some advertising in the first magazine to come out, and a half a booth. So I had half a booth.
Sure.
So 10 by 10
Yeah.
booth is a booth. I had a
Yeah.
5 by
Yeah.
10
Five
booth.
by. Nice.
And I had nothing to show. I had a flyer that I made up, printed out on my printer.
Hey, look at me.
Yeah, this is what Flagstick is going to be. This is what's going to be in it.
Right.
I had a table. I think we had a draw for a golf cart that I would have acquired from you and Jim at Golfer's Choice.
One of
And
those
that
high
was,
quality
yeah,
1995
yeah,
models,
the
or
little, I don't know what it was, Club Champ or
yeah,
Fricon
something
or
like that. I used to,
something.
yeah, I
It
remember all
was,
those.
yeah. So we had a golf cart to give away, and we did a draw to collect names for what I didn't know at the time. There was no such
Sure, why
thing as a
not?
database.
Yeah,
Um, and I had a ball retriever taped to the poles for the booth that I extended up over the booth with a cardboard cutout of a flag that said Flagstick on it. And I think I had a banner, a 5x10 banner
yeah,
or 5x2 banner that I had hanging up the back of the booth, which I still have the banner rolled up somewhere because
sure,
I hung it in my office, my space in my apartment,
yeah,
back then. So yeah, the golf. I didn't know what to expect. I had no
right,
idea. We were
yeah.
just there.
What was the reaction though? I mean, what were obviously you got to meet consumers, but you
Mhm.
also got to meet golf course owners and golf course people. I mean, was there something that at that original show sort of sparked a little bit more hope or more
Yes,
doubt?
there was a lot of interest. There was a lot of interest from the golfing public. Like there was a
Right.
lot of people at the golf expo there. So
Yeah.
a lot of people came by, asked what it was about when I explained it. Some people remembered Valley Golf News,
Hmm.
and told me about it, and offered to send me copies if I didn't have any, if I needed them. The golf courses that were exhibiting there had a lot of conversations with people then about advertising and stuff. So it was a very positive experience being at the
Right.
golf expo. Intimidating at first, but I mean that kind of went away after the first few hours of the first day of the show, which was 3 days back then.
Yeah.
So it was crazy. Yeah, that was definitely crazy.
So you get things going, and you get that first issue out in May 1996. I remember writing some stuff for that one,
Yes. Yeah.
and you're putting it together. But let's talk a little bit about some of those early days, and not just the first year, but the early parts, maybe the first few years going into things. But what were the challenges? What were the unexpected things, good and bad? What kind of new skills did you have to develop, sort of out of necessity? Because while you're coming out of marketing, advertising, and so forth, you're still taking on something that you hadn't done before. And there's a difference between selling for a newspaper and creating a publication, and then producing it, delivering it, all those things. So what were the notable things you think from those early times?
I think the biggest thing for me, so the producing it was the easy part for me because I had spent. First of all, I did not like selling advertising.
Hmm.
When I worked in the newspaper business, it was a job that when I came out of college. It was a job that I didn't want to do. I
Right.
wanted to build ads and create campaigns and
Okay.
things like that. Like that was what I wanted to do. I
Yeah.
didn't want to sell ads to
You
people.
liked more the marketing side of it more
Yeah,
than
like
anything.
that
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
thing. So the putting it together, I understood how to do pagination software. Like
Sure.
back then, it was PageMaker that we used, not InDesign like it is now. We use PageMaker, CorelDRAW,
Sure.
things like that. So I understood that software. So putting it together was the easy part. I was in the
Hmm.
golf or the newspaper business, so
Hmm.
putting together newspapers and specialty publications. When you worked for the Gan Reporter,
Yeah, you did a lot of
you
specialty
also did
pubs.
specialty
Yeah.
publications for Thousand Island Publishers, like
Hmm.
tours, but magazines. So I knew how to put together a magazine, the old school way,
Sure.
not the current way.
No, way different.
So that was not the intimidating part for me. The intimidating part for me was the actually getting out, and introducing something new
Hmm.
to a whole bunch of people that I didn't know, and had no history with in an industry that I was only really familiar with the retail side of.
Hmm.
So this side of it, I had to learn how to cover a tournament.
Hmm.
I had to learn how to cover events. I wasn't a reporter. I
You had to learn
certainly
how to
wasn't.
you had to learn how to write intros.
I had to learn how to write, period. And still not very good at that. So, but I had to figure it out. I had to figure out a
Yeah.
system
Hmm.
for doing this, and then a
Yeah, like a
system for,
workflow, right?
yeah,
So
exactly, a
yeah.
workflow. And I had a really good system.
Yeah.
And my wife was Patricia. She proofread every magazine the old school way of
Hmm.
each individual page was
Hmm.
edited and then Like we had a binder system, and it was an awesome system back then, but it was like everything was paper driven system.
Sure, of
Now,
course.
prior to 2020 when we produced the magazine, it's like, okay, I do it in InDesign. I send the
Sure.
InDesign file to you, and you go
Hmm.
through the InDesign file in the computer, edit it, and send it back to me. There's no paper anymore.
No.
Draw a line here, a little check mark here, draw a box over here. We got to move this here. Like, so
Right.
I had to learn a workflow for it. I had to
Yeah.
learn how to actually be a journalist
Hmm.
because I wasn't.
Hmm.
Um, and then you learn to be a planner too. So it's like the delivery of the magazine. Let's figure out how the most efficient way to get
Gotta wear a lot of hats.
15,000 copies of the magazine
Yeah.
delivered, and how many golf copies go to this golf course, and what's the route that you have to take to make
Hmm.
sure that you're doing it the most efficiently and hitting as many golf courses as possible before you have to reload, or
Yep.
as I'll tell a story here later about, or not reload,
Hmm. Yeah. Well, when we get to
which
that,
is a mistake.
yeah, you're doing lots of traveling, and you're
Tons.
going around all over the place. But yeah, I know the story that you speak of, and let's share that one right now, because that would count as a rookie mistake.
A heck of a honeymoon. I'll tell you, heck of
Yeah.
a honeymoon.
So
Uh,
let's hear that
yeah.
one.
So this was um, uh, after my wife and I got married. We were had a magazine at the printer and
Yep.
had to pick it up, and I thought it would be kind of cool to rent a van to do the
Hmm.
delivery, get all these magazines, pick them up at the printer and get an Aquay, and then go. Had the route all planned out. We're gonna pick up all these magazines, and I backed the van up to the newspaper, and they got the skids and stuff. And back there, it was like you didn't load the skid into the van; you hand bombed,
Hmm.
you know, all these magazines into the
Bundles.
back of
Yep.
the vehicle, the bundles in the back of the vehicle, and we start loading up the van. And as we're loading it, started to realize, oh my god, the back of the
Paper weighs a
van,
lot of money. It weighs a
yeah,
lot.
these things weigh a lot. And we just kept loading and loading and loading, and it's like maybe we shouldn't take them all. We have to take them. So we loaded the van completely, the back of this van, and it was loaded like it was full. And this was a
This
GMC
this
Safari van.
the Springs were
So
loving
this
this.
was not good. The back of the van was almost on the pavement. So we
Yeah.
get it all loaded up and we start delivering. And we're like, this is scary. Like I've never had this big a load in the back of a vehicle. So it was so weighted down in the back as we're driving as slow as possible. The front end of the van was bouncing up and down like one of those
Yeah, exactly. Low
those
riders.
low riders that they have.
Yeah.
Like we were actually doing it on purpose, but we weren't. So every bump you hit, the front end of the van was bouncing up and down. And we were so Trish and I were so scared. Like, what? Oh my God, this is gonna break. Can I even steer the?
Uh,
Because so we drove. We did like a bunch of golf courses, stopped and delivered on the way, and decided to drive back to the apartment in Ottawa.
yeah.
And we delivered a couple places on the way. Then we got back to the apartment and got permission from the landlord to unload all these magazines into the foyer in the apartment. We had this stack of magazines in the back
Sure.
of the apartment. And then we
Man.
just sort of reset the delivery. And that's sort of how the Cloverleaf delivery route was born. Because you would go out and then come back,
Yep.
and then you go out and then come back. It
Yeah.
was just like a 4-leaf clover throughout
Yeah,
the
I
week.
mean, like you said, it's not like you're putting in the mail and shipping it out. You're actually driving out and
No.
physically seeing the golf courses, and
Yes.
you're probably discovering new golf courses at the
So
time as
awesome though.
well.
Like
Yeah.
that's so awesome. Something that I to this day, curse you COVID, um, I miss. Like I
Mm.
enjoyed so much that part of my month,
Hmm.
where you sent it to the printer, waited the week, got it back, loaded the magazines up, and you went and you had your route, and we knew the routes by heart. I mean,
Sure.
so you just loaded up and went. And for Trish and I in the early days, that was like a weekend. We stopped for lunch places, we packed lunches. There were certain places that we learned to stop and pick up stuff, snacks and stuff on the way. And it was just a weekend. We spent the whole weekend together driving around delivering magazines, and it was the best.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Yeah.
But
I know we're gonna have to cut for break here in
yes,
a
yes, we
couple of
are.
minutes here, pretty quickly.
Not even
So
a couple minutes.
yeah, so why don't we do that, and then we can continue. I've got lots more questions for you here,
I'm sure
so
you do.
we'll go from there.
Okay, all right. You are listening to and watching the Flagstick podcast with Jeff Bonner and Scott McLeod. We will be right back. Just hang with us.
When you golf on Prince Edward Island, there are over 400 fairways closer than you can imagine. Not to mention countless miles of pristine beaches and a rich world-class culinary experience. So get here fast, then take it slow and play around on Island Time. Golf Prince Edward Island.
All right, well, welcome back to the Flagstick podcast. Call it a look back on 30 years of Flagstick. A quick look back, although we're not even out of the first freaking year.
No,
yet.
we're not.
God, we have to speed it up a little bit here. All right, let's get to the back nine presented by Falcon Ridge Golf Club. Indoor golf is in full swing at Falcon Ridge. The simulators are open 7 days a week, starting at 8 a.m. And shutting down sometime around 11. They have 4 TrackMan sims featuring over 500 golf courses, including many PGA Tour courses that you're aware of. They have beverages and light food available, so book your tee times on one of the 4 TrackMan sims at falconridgegolf.ca. And I do have to do that at some point or another because I haven't done any indoor golf yet, and that is kind of a travesty.
It is a travesty.
All right, more on 30 years.
Yeah, so
Matt, go ahead.
Obviously we were talking a little bit about, traveling around and stuff like that. And, you were obviously doing the stuff for delivery, but how extensive was the travel that you had to do to get to know the golf courses, the people and so forth? I mean, what was the mileage you were putting on?
I was on the road a lot. Like, honestly, in the early days and probably the first 15 years, I was on the road a lot. For whether it was delivery, whether it was the occasional event, obviously, when you came on board in 2000 full-time. I stressed that full-time. Scotty Mac has been involved since 1996 in some capacity, writing something here and there, creating my intros for stories because I was terrible at it.
I was looking through the masthead here. It was quite funny. Even here's your brother in here, Sean Botter, graphic artist, Patricia Witches, editor.
Yeah, so that's the 96 one.
Right, exactly.
Because we weren't married yet. We published the first one. We didn't marry till June of 1996, and the first issue was May of 96. So she was still Witches until that. That's it. There's a collector's edition for anybody. If you have an original Flagstick, my wife's maiden name is there you go. Didn't even think about that, to be honest with you.
I know. It's funny.
There's not many of those original issues out there. I think you have one, I have one. There's probably some people out there that have them. I know that they're in the Canadian Golf Hall of Fame has copies of the original.
They are in the National Library in Canada,
Archives,
and they are in
the Canada.
And they're in the Library of Congress in the United States as well.
So just so you know, that's just how big we are.
So I mean that travel you got
was
to see a
very
lot
extensive.
Of things,
like constantly, you got to think about Eastern Ontario, and take that that goes all the way for us. Flagstick territory, we'll call it, was all the way past Belleville. Yeah,
and to north it was to Mattawa, right? So I mean, you weren't obviously going up that way a lot, but Deep River, let's say.
And this was sort of the pre-main email, like the mainstream email and the text messaging and all that stuff. Yeah. So you got things done by going. I couldn't get ad copy.
No,
the faxes, but if I wanted a picture, I had to actually go and get the picture.
Right,
because I needed the picture to produce, because the digital picture did me no good. I needed the original.
No.
Heck, honestly, I was still pictures for news articles and stories and things like that were still printed, at a photography place in black and white. Because color didn't reproduce on the cameras at the printer very well, so it had to be black and white film. And I had prints or negatives and
because our first digital was the Olympus camera that had in 2000.
It's in the drawer right now.
Oh my god! That literally you could put like 4 photos on. Yeah,
they had the right here Olympus.
Yeah. You had to
Olympus. You're like, I got a smart media card.
Yes, you had to like delete a bunch of photos because it's like, oh man, I've got only so many photos on there or whatever. So so let's talk about that as well. The print side of it. obviously, there's a lot of nuances and things to it, but digital media was in its infancy. Even in 1996, websites and were existing. You know, and you knew that you obviously had to have some sort of web presence. So talk about sort of that side of it, how you decided to tackle that end of the business, which you probably didn't realize at the time would become very, very important.
Now.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So for me, I was fortunate that very first golf expo. See, the very first golf expo, the very first golf show, golf and travel show, actually, we'll call it. That directly across from me at the show was another person who was starting up at the same time. It was a gentleman by the name of Dan Kilbank. And Dan was a professional photographer. Basically, he was a wedding photographer. And because he was really into golf at the time, he sprouted out on his own and did golf course photography in exchange for free golf, so he could play more. And he built a website for his photography called OttawaGolf.com. And I met Dan at the Golf Expo. We connected a little bit because I was doing print and he was doing a website, which was kind of cool. And he knew about progressive websites where you had to know a fair bit of HTML coding and stuff back then, and he knew a little bit about it. So he was building a website. So we connected and decided to put Flagstick on Ottawa Golf as a feature. Right. So that was the original Flagstick, not flagstick.com, but the original Flagstick online was we had stories and things like that. We tried to mimic the magazine on his website as best we could, which was hard to do back then. Yeah, and that's how the web presence was born. It was
now let's cut this. Well, I'm not saying cut it short or whatever, but we're going to add it into another little mix later on of expanding. So I just wanted sort of that first part of it to know or to show that you were obviously thinking about that stuff at that point.
That was right away too. So that was like 96, 97 that we were on the web.
Yeah. So, all right. I will get back to that shortly. It was a little bit of a seasonal business at that time. You were doing some stuff in the wintertime, but not really that much or whatever. But, those early days, again, as you mentioned, it was mostly yourself. You're kind of wrangling everything. You're handling most things on your own. When did it start to get to the point where it's like, okay, I need to add some bodies here more on a regular basis rather than just, columnists, contributors, which obviously you had kind of at that point? When did that realization sort of come? It's like, okay, I can't work 29 hours out of a 24-hour day.
Well, I think that the first big revelation was probably around 1999. Okay. When maybe even a little sooner than that I probably needed more. At that point, 2000 was when you came on board full time. So that was probably, if you look for very specifics, that's when the first employee was added. Right. But the need for that more involvement started before that because you were doing more and more and more stuff while you were still with the golf shop in Kingston. So I think that the thought of needing somebody more full time happened more 98, 99, that I thought, okay, this is getting a little too big for me. I need to have another person so that I can focus on the business end of it and less on the journalism side of it.
Right. Yeah.
So that was the first big kicker right there. And that was, it doesn't seem like we were in business for very long at that time because that was only 3 years at that time that I would have thought that. But there was also a time after the first year where I didn't think I was even going to bother keeping doing it. So the fact that 3 years later I'm looking to, okay, I think
that's quite a flip.
Yeah. So I would say, probably 99 is when it first started to rear into my head.
So that brings up a good point there. You were unsure after kind of that first year. What was that tipping point? Where was that decision? You finished that first year, and we'll progress ahead in a minute here. But when did you decide that it's like, okay, you know what? I'm committed. I'm going to keep going.
So, so the big turning point would have been so through that first year, we had a garbage bin in the back of the apartment or a recycle bin in the back of the apartment, and throughout the year, I was pretty much putting more magazines in the recycle bin
Hmm.
than people were keeping. So we always take the old ones whenever we delivered. We always put the old
Sure.
ones and put them in the recycle bin at my apartment, and I was basically printing 10,000 copies of this magazine and putting 8,000 in this bin.
Wow.
And that went through the whole year. Like that did not change very much to the whole year. At the end of the year, we finished the year and I'm like saying to my wife, Trish, I don't know. I mean, like I can't keep throwing money at this. Little did I know 30 years later I'd still be throwing money at it. But back then it's like I just don't know if it's just catching on. I'm missing something. I just don't know what it is. We were in the
Yeah.
parking lot. We went to Bayshore Mall to do some shopping. We pull in the parking lot and get out of the car, and I look, and here in the window ledge of somebody's car is a copy of Flagstick.
Mm.
And it was at that point that I'm like, I turned to Trish and I said, I have to keep doing this
That's cool.
because it was like clearly people are like this is if this is what people are doing with it when they pick it
Hmm.
up, this is exactly what I was hoping would happen is that people
Yeah.
would want it to like it wouldn't just read it
I
and throw
guess
it
it's
away.
Yeah, I guess it's hard when you're working sort of in isolation that you're not in at the time because you're not having as much, interaction on, there's no such thing as social media at that point or whatever. So, outside of few run-ins here and there, it's hard to
Yeah.
get the feedback that buoys your confidence that, okay, you're doing a good thing, keep going.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. So it was the next year that we switched the covers to full color covers
Right.
and newsprint inside, and that sort of, from a
Got things
distribution
rolling.
standpoint, and from people picking it up, that changed everything. Like that,
Yeah.
next thing you know, we're like, and it was year two. Um, so everything had changed after making that decision. But that
So
was
let's
the
talk.
turning point.
So let's talk about that. I know it's hard to believe we're only here at 2000, but I mean, we'll progress ahead pretty quickly here or whatever. But in 2000, you started getting involved with the Garrison Open down in Kingston,
Hmm.
and that sort of spawned the development eventually of flagstick run tournaments, and how that progressed and it continues today. So what was your feel of getting involved with tournaments and why it was important, not just for the publication, but kind of for you and regional involvement.
So the tournament, so the Garrison Open, that was an interesting one because that tournament was had always been like a big deal in Kingston
Sure.
for a
Yeah.
long time, but it was
Dying.
it was dying,
Yeah.
and we were approached about getting involved in it, and trying to help revive it a little bit, with us being involved and being promoting it and
Hmm.
helping run it and things like that. So we got involved in it in that respect. We basically took the title sponsorship of it, and in exchange for title sponsorship of it, we advertised it. We promoted it through the magazine, through whatever channels we had at the time,
Yep.
posters and things like that. But it became the Flagstick Garrison Open, which
Hmm.
I guess by all rights became the first Flagstick Open.
Yeah.
Um, and the tournament, it flipped around, and I think the thing is, we realized that when we put our name on something,
Hmm.
um, and basically back it in that fashion, that people trust us. Like
Right.
it's just
Yep.
okay. These guys know golf. They're putting their name on it. They wouldn't put their name on it if it wasn't a good tournament.
Hmm.
They're involved in it directly, like on site, helping run it. I was doing starting, um, and that was a big deal too. It's like, okay, I'm doing the
Hmm.
starting. I'm interacting with every single person playing in the tournament.
Right.
As well, at that time, I played in it.
Yeah. Me
Um,
too.
so yeah, exactly. You played it as well, um, and I did finish second behind Greg Knudsen, who was a really good golfer, by the way, at that time. But that was then after that, I stopped playing in it. Say it couldn't do it. It couldn't play and run at the same time. But
Yeah.
I think at that point realized that the brand had power,
Hmm.
in out doing events, and we knew how to do the events correctly because we'd seen so many great events that we just brought that sort of mentality to it, that we're not just running a golf tournament, we're running an experience.
Hmm.
And that was what started it. And then we just kept doing it. And then eventually became the Flagstick shootout
Hmm.
at Smugglers, and then eventually became the Flagstick Open, and then the BCC Open, and then the two ball championship, which we did for a couple of years, and
Hmm.
like to bring that back again at some point too. But I think we just realized that the Flagstick brand and our knowledge of the industry and our knowledge of what
Hmm.
it took to run an event became something that was transferable.
Yeah, and it filled a space too. I
Yeah,
mean,
big time.
people were looking those events or whatever. So that takes us to event involvement as a sponsor. And one thing that I've seen Flagstick do over the years was, get involved with the various associations in different programs in support of all sorts of different things. But, so how and why did you want to get involved with groups like the PGA of Ottawa, OVGA, Golf Ontario, even did Golf in the Schools program? What was that all about? Like, why did you, what was your motivation there? Because I think a lot of people sometimes will think the motivation is purely commercial, but I've always felt or witnessed that it was more than that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess in the background, when you sponsor things or get involved in things, there is a commercial side to it. Like you
Mhm.
can't eliminate that
Yeah, of
completely.
course. Yeah.
I think for me with the involvement in associations, these associations are the driving forces behind what grows golf.
Mhm.
So whether it's the PGA of Ottawa, the OVGA, Golf Ontario, Golf Canada, whatever the association is, these people are the ones that are sort of responsible. NGCOA as well with the golf shows, they're responsible for helping grow the game. I always felt like we had a responsibility as a media outlet in the golf industry to be a part of helping grow the game with them. So not just ourselves. So we always obviously do what we do, putting the information out there and the content out there is helping get more people knowledgeable about the game and more people into the game, and that's the helping the growth of the game as well. But these associations, it's important to partner with them. It's important to be beside them and help them push their objectives as well. So whether it doesn't matter what association it is, even current ones like the Play Junior Golf Tour, just you know being around those associations and what they're trying to accomplish, and helping be a small part of helping them achieve those goals. That's why we connect with them. We're all partners in golf. Like that's our end objective is we want as many people playing this game as possible, because it benefits everybody that's involved in the industry for more people to play. So it becomes an unselfish thing.
Yeah. So we'll circle back here. Remember, we were talking about the website a little bit, and I
Hmm.
think that sort of spawned a lot of other things because over that period of time in the last 30 years, obviously media has changed quite a bit,
Hmm.
and as a result, Flagstick has had to adapt, but also not just for the fact that the digital stuff has existed, but because there were skills and abilities and openings and demand for certain things. So while Flagstick started as a print magazine, kind of explain how and kind of why the company started to get into different realms. I mean, consulting, graphic design, digital outlets like digital magazines, with photography for a while, newsletters, did publication with Golf Ontario for quite some time when
Hmm.
they needed something, and they needed a partner, social media, podcasts. And how has that changed the company as the market has changed? Big question, I know.
Yeah, that's a um
Pull a
I,
thread
I
and
I
talk
think
about
the
it.
most important part about where this is going is that all of the other things spawned from Flagstick, the print magazine, because there was a need in the golf market at the time for golf courses and golf industry businesses to have help from people that understood golf. So
Mm,
all of the other things like the graphic design, the consulting, and things like that. Obviously, we're trying to expand and grow the brand and business, and recognizing that we dealt with a lot of golf courses and a lot of golf businesses during the time of publishing, and watching how, you're chasing ad copy for an ad. It's like, okay, well, they don't, well, what do I want to do for this ad? Well, can you whip something up for me? They don't know. They didn't, and most of them couldn't afford to hire agencies to do stuff for them.
Yeah, they're
So
busy
it's like,
running their golf
yeah,
courses, right?
so and they don't have full-time marketing directors and things like that. So we looked at this and go, wait a second, I think we can probably help the golf courses, our clients, and other golf businesses in an area that we feel at this point, we're experts. I mean, we're in this golf industry. We've been in it a while. I'm in marketing. I have been in marketing. I'm educated in marketing. You were involved in golf for a long time, so there was an understanding of the industry, of all those industries, not just golf, marketing, publishing, design. So it is a no-brainer for that part of it, to kind of expand and say, look, we can help you. Yes, we're going to charge you for it because, I can't do stuff for free.
Sure,
but,
of course, it's a business.
But we're going to charge you for it, but it won't be hundreds of dollars an hour. It'll be, a lot less.
Reasonable. Yeah.
And affordable. And then all the other things like the newsletters and things like that, kind of just, those things cropped up out of reading the industry. And we've always tried to be a little bit ahead of the curve if we could. For instance, social media, you were massive on social media when social media was not what it is now. So we were a little bit like jumping a little bit ahead all the time. And I think the newsletters and things like that, the partnerships with Golf Ontario, like all of that stuff was just like trying to be a little bit more progressive than reactive. I don't like being reactive. I like to make decisions before I have to make decisions, not because I have to make decisions. So,
and that was kind of full circle with Golf Ontario because, as you mentioned earlier,
yes,
you talked about Ontario
so
Golf
excited
News.
when we did that.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, they had a partnership at that point that wasn't going quite well. And I remember having a discussion on the golf course at Loyalists and discussing it with the marketing director then, who eventually ended up working for the RNA and becoming the director of the CPKC Women's Open. Unfortunately, stepped down last week. But yeah, I mean, it was like all of a sudden there's that Ontario Golf News, and you're able to kind of produce that again, and that was a little bit of a full circle moment.
Very much so. That was. I mean, I wish we'd have been able to continue it as a print magazine, and not as a digital product. But it was really exciting to kind of be the one doing it after using that publication as the springboard for everything.
All right, we're going to push ahead here a little bit. Obviously, the COVID-19 pandemic sort of changed the world in many ways, particularly for a golf publication. One that had the main distribution points were golf courses. So all of a sudden it's like, okay, they're not open as far as the start of that year. What were your thoughts kind of when all that was going down, and what was the eventual pivot that had to take place?
My thoughts was I don't know if
I know
it's
a deep one.
Thoughts, because it was very it was financially, it was a really tough hit for us.
Sure.
We lost about 70% of our revenue when that happened. Losing your distribution chain. I mean, you can imagine any business that in a snap of a finger loses its ability to distribute its product.
Right.
There's no pivot that's perfect for that. For us, the pivot was to go digital. We had already had a digital publication at the time, so it wasn't like we were making a pivot that was unfamiliar. Flagstick was a digital product all the while it was a print product, and we always knew that at some point or another we might be put in this position where we might have to make a decision between whether continuing to print the magazine made financial sense. The landscape of the industry was changing a lot at the time, but that change was in its infancy. So to make that change to digital seemed like a reasonably good idea and necessary idea at the time. So we went to a full digital product. And it was okay. That switch was okay, but you realized pretty quickly that it wasn't the same.
No.
You couldn't. The difference between sitting and reading a 48-page magazine and sitting at your computer reading a 48-page magazine or reading on your phone. The attention span
Different animal.
is just not even the same. So,
Yeah.
but we had no choice. We
Yeah.
had no distribution. So that was the pivot. We pushed harder on the newsletters. We pushed harder on the website. We went to a digital product. And then obviously years later, we abandoned the digital product because the website product had expanded so much so that producing a page flip magazine when all the content was on the website anyway, and they had to go to the website to read the magazine, it didn't really make sense to have them flip through a paginated magazine that was digital when they could just choose what they wanted online. So, and I guess that kind of brings us to where we are today with that side of things. But that was the big pivot.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I know this one's a little bit more personal and it might make you squirm in your chair a little bit, but you've not been one to kind of chase awards. But what did it mean to you to become something like an honorary director for the PGA of Ottawa, which I know was big for you, to be recognized in the Ottawa Business Journal, the 40 under 40. So that was a couple of years ago for people who wasn't last year, and ultimately, having representation as far as the publication and induction into the Ottawa Valley Golf Association Golf Hall of Fame. So what do those things mean to you? I know. Again, I know you're probably uncomfortable maybe answering some of this, but I want you to answer it.
They all have chronological importance to me. So yes, I'm not going to say I don't care about
of course
awards and things like that. I think everybody that receives an award ultimately humbles themselves in receiving it, but is excited about having received it. So, but they're chronological for me. Being chosen as an honorary director for the PGA was huge for me at that time. That was the first one, and because that's coming from a place of the professional golfers. Like this is the PGA of
it's
Ottawa.
It's them showing respect for what you've contributed, right?
And whenever you're honored or recognized for what you've contributed to an industry, that's huge. So getting that honor was big. The second one was the 40 under 40 was something that because you're being honored. First of all, you're under 40 years old and you're being recognized as one of the top 40 business people by the Ottawa Business Journal, which is a very prominent and has been a very prominent business publication in the Ottawa area for a long time. So receiving an honor like that amongst some of the other people that had received that honor, there's a lot of people that are in high tech. And this is
very diverse group.
It's a very diverse group, and it's a very class. Like this is, it was a big deal. It was a huge deal for me. And then ultimately, the big one is the Ottawa Valley Golf Association, the Hall of Fame, and having Flagstick as part of that, kind of for me solidified all of the years of grinding with the publication. And having the publication be recognized by the association that you started your conversation with and you worked side by side and closely with over the years to help them and to have them see you as somebody who has contributed, having them look at Flagstick and say, this publication has contributed so much to the growth of the industry over the years, we need to recognize it permanently in history. Those are milestones. Every single one of those, they're milestones, and they're all recognition of achievements. And just having Flagstick in Hall of Fame, like maybe someday down the road, maybe Flagstick is recognized in the Ontario Golf Hall of Fame and maybe in the Canadian Golf Hall of Fame, maybe not. It doesn't matter if it is, but when and if it happened, it will matter more. It'll matter that much more. So it just becomes another chronological step in seeing Flagstick, the legacy of Flagstick being part of the golf industry forever.
All right. I know that probably felt a little bit more serious or whatever. So why don't we have a little bit more fun for our last little bit here? I'm not sure what we've got. We got a little bit of time left, not too much here, but all right. So what have been some of the other personal highlights over the 30 years? I mean, there's been lots of trips tournaments, events, pro tournaments, amateur tournaments, and then tons of different things. Is there something that jumps out? And I know there's probably 50, but is there one that sort of jumps out as sort of that's a cool moment from, and again, 30 years, we're talking, whatever, 10,000 days. Is there something that jumps out?
There's a bunch. There
Okay.
certainly
All
is a
right.
bunch. I mean, if you're looking at moments over the last 30 years that stand out, I mean, the trip that we took to Pinehurst
Hmm.
stands out for
Many
a number
reasons.
of reasons. I mean, just getting there was
Yeah.
was an experience in itself because that was
Yeah.
post 9/11, like really
Post as
post
in
9/11,
days.
like
Yeah.
that was, you know, I was just talking to Trish and Brandon about that trip and going
Hmm.
across the border in the army with the guns, and like it was,
Yeah.
and but the trip itself was just like, for some people that's a once in a lifetime trip. I'm hoping that at some point I get to go back, but I've had many trips like that. Just going to Pinehurst though is just,
Hmm.
it's another level. Our trip to Scotland
Hmm.
to celebrate our
Speaking of the
respective
40th. Yeah.
yeah, to celebrate our respective birthday. That trip was, off the chains. That was just, again, these are once in a lifetime experiences for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So that one was huge. Described early on that first delivery.
Mm.
That's a huge highlight
Yeah.
because of it was, right after I got married, like it was like part of the honeymoon.
Sure. Yeah.
So that was an awesome thing. Um, other than that, they all kind of the things that have happened over the last 30 years very much. I'm not saying they blur together, but there's so many things that
Yeah.
have happened. This magazine and this industry has given me so many opportunities and so many life experiences over the years that I couldn't even count um, how many of them there are, because there's so
Hmm.
so many of them, and the people that you've met, the friendships in the industry that have been created over the years and still are created as things continue to progress.
Hmm.
Those are things that those are life experiences in themselves.
Hmm.
So
Probably stuff you didn't imagine as coming out of college and
no,
going,
not
okay,
not at all. I mean,
what's going to happen in
my
my,
first PGA show was
yeah.
crazy. Probably my first and my second PGA show. Um, some of those PGA shows have more experience and memories, and some memories that I choose to forget. But they're all experiences. Good thing we don't have enough time to get into details.
Let's
No,
not.
no, that's
So
definitely not.
a couple last ones here for you,
Mhm.
so we can sort of be on time or whatever. I mean, I know we could talk about this for hours and hours, but all these years later, how do you look at golf? Do you how has the value of it changed for you? Because you come from somebody that came to the game late, looked at it from a business side of it,
Mhm.
but obviously played the game. But I mean, how do you see golf now versus how you saw it 30 years ago?
From my perspective,
Yeah, for
or
sure. And
not.
for
No, we're
you,
not
for
talking
you,
about the industry.
no, no,
We're
no. Let's
okay, because
let's
I don't
see
want to get into
how
that detail.
no, 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 no.
Um,
Personally, where does golf sit in your life now?
right now, I mean, I'm going to be honest. There was a period of time in the 30 years where there was some years in there where I really kind of lost my passion for playing,
Hmm.
and um, it really started. The whole flagstick thing became started to become so much of a grind as a business
Hmm.
that I just didn't have I didn't want to play. I didn't have
Yeah.
any interest in playing. When I was done, I just wanted to stop thinking about golf, and the business just became a business.
Hmm.
And in the last few years, I've really started to kind of grasp my passion for it a little bit more. My interest in playing, my interest in traveling to play, um, sparked on a little bit by my youngest son, who really
Hmm.
likes to play, going and touring some different golf courses that I hadn't played in a long time, working on a new project. So I have a renewed passion, a renewed interest in playing, and a renewed passion and interest in the game. And I think this year I'm finding it even more. I'm finding a little more excitement, a little bit more energy. I'm excited about the season that's coming. I think that our golfing audience that we've nurtured over the 30 years and the new ones that are coming up are going to be excited about a couple of the things that we're bringing in 2026 as well. So that excites me as well. So losses and gains over the years, but I feel like we're in a good place right now.
All right, one last one here. I know this won't be hard to keep brief, but why do you think Flagstick has been able to exist for 3 decades? You mentioned at the start, we talked about how short businesses can be, and then obviously Flagstick is around for 30 years. What do you think the key ingredients or the key ingredient is for that?
This is not as big an answer as you think for me. I think there's a couple of major components here. One is adaptability. The ability to change things on the fly, year by year, within the year, pivoting and going different directions as need be. There's been an ability for us to adapt always. And the other thing is content. What we produce for the website, what we produced for the magazine, what we produce for newsletters and this show, it's the content that we produce. For the most part, it's all organic content. We don't rehash other people's stuff. Everything comes from 99.9% of the content comes from you. 0.1% of it may have come from me back in the early days. Over the years, Joe McLean was involved. We've had Rich McLean involved. We've had instructors, PGA instructors like Kevin Haim has been a major part of the instruction side of Flagstick for years and years and years. So I think that the content, because it's not generic and is not the same as everybody else's content, I think that's another reason why people look to us as a go-to source for golf information, is because of that. So adaptability and content are two major, huge components of why we've been able to last this long. Awesome. And I'm stubborn.
There we go. All right. I appreciate that, Jeff. Hopefully that gives people a little bit of an insight, and I'm sure we'll touch on a few other points over the coming podcasts.
I'm sure that we will. Thanks for doing that. I always like to be nostalgic.
There you go.
Just want to let people know that coming up in this season, that there's a couple of new things, something new for YouTube that I think you'll enjoy, and something's coming back. We'll leave it at that. Thanks to all our sponsors, Metcalf Golf Club, Falcon Ridge Golf Club, and our presenting sponsor, Golf PEI. Golf Prince Edward Island is a premier Canadian golf destination, boasting the most number of golf courses per capita, with over 400 fairways closer than you imagine. Exquisite culinary experiences, top-tier accommodations. It's the easiest golf vacation you will ever book, so book them. golfpei.ca. I do hope that you've been enjoying this podcast. Be sure to follow us across all of our social media networks. Instagram, X, TikTok, and Facebook. Subscribe to Spotify, Audible, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like us, click the notification bell. Make sure you never miss a single episode, and visit flagstick.com for more amazing golf content delivered every single day. As always, we appreciate you tuning in, but until next week, I'm Jeff Potter.
And I'm Scott McLeod.
Always remember, go for the stick.